Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Today we're going to be decoding tweets of July 24th, but before we do that one, there was one on July 23rd, Thomas, that we didn't get when we did yesterday. It hadn't come in yet, and it is the Made in America Showcase. Did you have an opportunity to see that short video clip?
Oh, of course.
Oh, well, that's great. And for those of you who didn't, now remember, I keep all of the tweets inside the link, inside the description box. And it's surprisingly, some people don't even know where the description box is, but you have to open it up, the video up in YouTube, and if you look below, you'll see all the description. And this is where you can follow along. And also, I always leave a little something, a little extra surprise. Remember when we were kids and in the Cracker Jack box, there was always that special little surprise? Well, we always leave a little surprise in there for you. Okay, so this was a White House exhibit of products made in America to showcase products from all 50 states. And all that was well and good, but I have to keep reminding people that we wouldn't have this ability if we didn't protect our innovators and entrepreneurs in the United States to create this new technology. Oops, what was I thinking? The U.S. Patent Office is run by British-controlled Serco and steals all of our patents. Oh, like Leader Technologies, whose patent was stolen. I mean, here's an American inventor that comes to do something great for America, and the Brits rip us off. And then everybody out in Silicon Valley gets this thing as a freebie and then runs it against us as a spying and surveillance operation. Okay, is that what he really wanted to say in that tweet?
That's an excellent decoding. I don't even have to add to that. But as you know, I will, because I have checked the trip code, and we do verify this is coming from our president, whose tweets shock the world, whose tweets are the earthquake of economics, whose tweets are the takedown of his enemies. So what he's doing here, highlighting this is, of course, to show the great things he's doing. And every time he says tariffs, that means if they don't want to play games with us, we simply will make it ourselves. We will go back to being 100% self-sufficient. And at that point, we will be the strongest America that it has ever been. So what we're seeing here is make it in America. Yeah, a lot of stuff is still made in China.
But we can make it in America, but we need to protect the patents that are being put in by American innovators. And we've got to look at the corrupt U.S. Patent Office.
We absolutely have to boycott the current patent office. Do not turn any more patents into them. Turn them into the U.S. Marshal Office and have them protected and get it out of the courts where there are administrative judges making decisions that simply serve the British Crown, Serco, Geoffrey Patty, so on and so forth. We've already explained all that to you. But what we're talking about here is right now, Taiwan has sent out probably its last SOS to the world, which is, please help us. Mainland China is getting ready to overrun us with troops. Not one word from anybody. They used to be our number one manufacturing resource, was Taiwan. That's been shifted over to South Korea. Soon it'll be going to North Korea, and China is being taken out of the equation, and they don't like it. That's the reason they're at war. We are at war with China. Our ally, Taiwan, one of our best manufacturing allies, is about to be taken over by China because China can't make ends meet. They tried to become capitalists, and because they're totalitarian, it doesn't work. They try to force things down people's throat. They have no idea how to make capitalism work without being violent and aggressive. So make it all in America and stop giving contracts to the Brits through Serco, through Crown agents, through USAID. Trump is stopping some of that already, so we know that he is doing the same agenda that we're talking about, and we point it out all the time. They are losing contracts now. Serco is being questioned. It may actually go bankrupt, and its American counterpart, once we see what happens in Britain, Australia, and Canada, they may just all have to fold here in America altogether. And if that happens, that will strengthen our economy more than anything that you can imagine.
Now, the next tweet is very exciting because we know you, Thomas. You're going to take us to levels of understanding of this tweet that no one in the internet can do like you. Well, maybe Michael McKibben. But here we go. Let me read it. It's a retweet. Lockheed Martin will add 400 workers to boost production of the F-35 fighter jet, the most expensive in U.S. history, after making a good on earlier promise to President to increase the aircraft's workforce by 1,800.
Yeah, there's a little mistake there, and scratch the word A. But Dan Scavino, you don't know what you're talking about. That isn't making good. If you promise 1,800 jobs and you only give 400, that means the following. The 1,800 was going to be the gouging on the military-industrial contract from Lockheed Martin. You can't name a Lockheed Martin contract that they haven't gouged on, had cost overruns, and in most cases, probably 1 out of every 5 contracts, you can look it up. We've done intelligence reports on it, and you will see that Lockheed has been sued more times than you can shake a stick at it. They get sued all the time. They do not fulfill their contracts. The cost overruns are in the billions. So this new fighter, it was to be their new scam. Here's the way the scam works. Trillions of dollars are still paid to Lockheed Martin, even beyond the contracts that were in the yearly omnibus budget. So the $700 billion, some of those things are years and years behind. Some of these contracts are fulfillments of 10 years, so on and so forth. So this fighter plane, it's a disaster, and it isn't good. And the reason they're only giving 400 is because, again, Lockheed Martin is owned and operated by Serco. Serco is owned by the Queen. She owns the golden share for Lockheed Martin. So when you name the top military-industrial contractors in America, Lockheed Martin is one of the top 3. And then comes BAE, British Aerospace. And then comes Boeing. And Boeing is oftentimes told what to do by Lockheed Martin or by BAE or by L3, which is also owned by the Brits. So when it comes down to it, the top 4 or 5 contractors who do all of this work that rip us off for trillions of dollars, that's the trillions of dollars, it's $10 trillion missing from the budgets of the Pentagon. People say, well, how can it be missing? They spend it, though they don't have it. These are off-book transactions, and they oftentimes go for these cost overruns. They go for the final payment for a 10-year program for, say, they order 100 planes, and Lockheed Martin delivers 20. They lie. This is how they gouge us.
Well, this is a scam to put money in the British coffers.
Yes. And so it isn't surprising that Lockheed Martin promised 1,800 jobs and only delivered on 400 on the biggest contract ever. Think that through, folks. That means that they are building in the ripoff from the beginning because it's institutionalized ripoff of America. So we need to stop doing business with Lockheed Martin. We need to stop doing business with British BAE, British Aerospace. We need to stop doing business with Boeing if they're going to simply turn around and give those contracts to Britons in subcontracts below them. We need to make anything done for our military made here in America, from the microchips on up, because we let Chinese make the microchips. And we had to recall all of them.
And with no foreign interference, which includes ownership in these companies.
Completely. And if you look closely, you will see that Serco owns the golden share of Lockheed Martin. Therefore, it's not even an American company. But you ask anyone and they'll tell you it's an American company, and that is a lie. And it's directly related to AWE, the Atomic Weapons Establishment, which is what controls the uranium and the top secret materials concerning anything atomic with these planes, with, of course, their payloads, with sometimes their generators, and so on and so forth. So we give all of our IP to Brit, not only because they steal our patents, but if we happen to create something that's an add-on and a continuation of a previous patent, we give it to the Brits because they're building it for us.
Well, it's becoming more and more obvious that the enemy is Britain. And this is why they're very upset that Russia and the United States are talking to each other.
Very, very, very upset, because this could disturb the balance of power of the Cold War. Let's remember, we just gave a ton of technology to Russia, and now they're threatening us with it. Now, let me just dissuade some of your fears. First off, hypersonic missiles. They've never been successfully tested. Yeah, we went over there, and Raytheon built a plant to build hypersonic missiles so that they could have hyper propaganda that we need to do it now in America, so we need to spend equal amount of money. What they didn't tell you is they've never been tested successfully.
So it's just another scam.
It's a complete scam, but both sides, Russia and America, will pay to bring all missiles up to hypersonic, but we have no missiles that can intercept a hypersonic missile. So if these hypersonic missiles are going to be accepted into, and this is what Trump and Putin need to decide, no hypersonic missiles. In China too, no more advancements. We don't need any more advanced technology to kill people on a massive scale.
But then the globalists won't be able to make money.
That's exactly right. And John McCain, from his deathbed, he's probably checking his Raytheon stock, making sure that he makes money off of the remarks he made recently, saying that Trump is in bed with Putin. Trump is going to start World War III. Trump is treasonous. Trump is whatever. No, those are the people concerned about their lobby money. They're only fighting for their own pocketbook. Who could say that they would stand against peace? Well, we just got a whole lot of Democrats who say, kill all ICE members, abolish ICE, abolish any borders, let anyone come into the country, let anybody vote, free ride for everybody. We love terrorists. Bring in every single radical Islamic terrorist you can. We love them. We're going to kiss them. The Pope loves them. These people are crazy. They have gone so far to the left that they're beyond fascist communism. They are into idealistic totalitarianism, which can never exist, folks, except in the minds of demented people who are controlled by what the media tells them to believe. Media says treason, they all say treason. Ask them. Ask any one of these demented left-wingers. What did Trump do to create treason? They can't tell you anything. All they get is the subliminal programming that they hear when they're in the bar drinking and they hear the news, CNN, which is, pays to make sure that they're broadcast in every airport and every public space in America. They pay. Does anybody know that? They pay to have those contracts. Why? Because the subliminal programming keeps everybody in a condition of fear and hatred. And now, if we're not going to hate Russia, who are we going to hate? We might have time to hate George Soros, the real enemy. Or
Malik Brown,
or Bill Browder, or Oleg Deripaska, or any of the real enemies of the state. How about, we'll get to them in a minute, the enemies of the state who are at the head of the intelligence communities previously.
Well, moving on to a better subject, the Coast Guard seizes $720 million worth of cocaine from boats moving drugs from Central America to the U.S.
Cocaine and heroin, those are approved by the CIA. We were growing it in Afghanistan, and we were protecting the fields, protecting the labs. Trump has napalmed the fields, firebombed them, and he's blown up the labs. And so we have noticed a huge...
Now, wait. I know people want to know more about what you just said.
Well, this is historic. He already went in and when he increased the number of troops in Afghanistan, they started bombing the opium fields. Before that, Obama and previous presidents were there to protect the opium fields, the poppy fields, so that the opium can come across the southern border, because that's one of the slush funds of the CIA, rogue CIA. Everybody knows that, right? Well, that's the way it's always been going. And before that, they used Thailand, and before that, they've used other places, and before that, there was the opium wars in China, and on and on and on. We use opium to destabilize cultures and create chaos. That's what the CIA does throughout the world.
But you also said that he's blowing up labs.
Oh, he blew the labs that purify the poppies into heroin were also exploded, blown up. Our military blew them up. And so as they find them, they blow them up. And This is really upsetting Afghanistan, and it's upsetting Iran, and it's upsetting Pakistan. It's upsetting everybody, because this is what the war was about. At first, it was about the Russian pipelines, and then when that was overthrown by the fact that American presidents, and specifically we have pictures of Secretary of States with their arms around bin Laden in Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda means the list. It means the CIA-trained fighters who were there to fight the Russians. We created that battle. We created that war, and we continue it. But now the war has shifted. We don't care about the pipeline anymore. We care about stopping the flow of heroin into this country, and it is being stopped. Now, the cocaine, the Coast Guard is finally doing its job. Probably some restrictions have been lifted from them. And you notice now, every single day, literally, I was saying every week, every single day, we either find and capture, just like this, huge amounts of cocaine coming from Mexico, usually through the water, with the Coast Guard catching them, but across the southern border. And where's that cocaine coming from? Mexican government-supported cartels. Now, the president of Mexico has offered amnesty to all cartels. In other words, he is a cartel member. He is the drug kingpin of Mexico. He has declared war on America in his platforms, and he for his running for office. He's declared that all Mexicans have the right to come to America, cross the border illegally, earn money with a fake Social Security card, and send it back to Mexico. He told his people, go do that. That's your right. I need you to do that because I can't really afford you anymore. Cartel members, drug members, every friggin' day on our southern border, they discover either huge amounts of drugs that they've captured or a lot of dead people. So those people who want to abolish ICE and want to abolish the southern border, you are declaring war on America. You are now an enemy of the state. How dare you declare war on the rule of law? That is absurd. Antifa, you're absurd. Black Lives Matter, you've killed people. Antifa, you've killed people. You need to stop, and you need to be considered domestic terrorists, and you need to be locked up.
Like the people that are blocking the intersections to keep travelers from moving, these left-wing radical groups. I think it's time for us to see some severe punishment for these people.
Illegal aliens stopping the traffic in Florida. Every time that happens, it can cost millions of dollars. And it's illegal in many states. As soon as this happened with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, some states, I think 17 states, voted that if you do this and someone runs you over, you cannot sue them. And if you do it, you are a criminal and you will be arrested. So arrest them.
Oh, so if you have ever wanted to see what it's like to hit someone in a big truck, that's fair game. You can go out there and do that in that state?
That is correct.
Wow.
It's already happened.
Wow. Yeah.
People have been, they didn't die, but 3 people have been hit within days of one state passing this regulation. You can't go out and stop.
Can we have like a point system?
Yes, depending upon how far left they are, you get more points.
Okay.
Because basically, stopping the traffic is an economic terrorist activity. You can have peaceful demonstrations, and I support that, and I support free speech 100%.
But in the middle of the highway?
That isn't free speech. That's obstruction of basically our economy. And when that happens, it costs huge amounts of money and ruins people's lives, okay? You don't have the right, illegal alien, to go out onto American streets and commit crimes.
Well,
you need to be arrested, and you need to be deported and or kept in the FEMA camps. I don't want good jails to hold these illegal aliens.
But Vanguard, they're the private prison group, and that's who Jeff Sessions is aligned with, and they need these people in their jails so that they can make money.
We need to use the FEMA camps to hold these illegal aliens. Mind you, 400,000 of them are waiting. 425,000 are waiting for their court cases right now. 85% of them will not show up for those court cases. And of the 2,000 children that was supposedly caged by Trump, when all he was doing was following the same rules and actually using better facilities than Obama used for 8 years, what has happened? Hundreds of those children so far through DNA testing have been found not to be at all related to their parents, the supposed parents bringing them across the border. Exactly what we told you. There is almost no such thing as a woman, a 12-year-old woman or above, that makes it to our southern border without being raped. So if you want that to continue, far left-wingers, you are raping people. You are complicit for rape, for murder, for drug addictions, for human trafficking, and all these other crimes.
Are you kidding? These Hollywood perverts, they'll rape anything. Have you seen the videos of these thugs showing you how to rape babies?
Hollywood is the deprecation of mankind. It is the path to the 7 deadly sins. Every single movie is a study in the 7 deadly sins and making it more explicit, more visceral, more real, and teaching criminals how to commit crimes. That is what Hollywood is good for, is training criminals, training pedophiles, training the deprecation of the morality of America. That's what Hollywood is.
Disgusting. You know, for the next year, at least, we just need to boycott anything that comes out of Hollywood.
Oh, completely. And every time one of these people opens their mouths, just don't ever go to another one of their movies.
Did you see Netflix stocks? It's way down. It's because we've had it with them. You put Barack and Big Mike in charge at Netflix along with, was it Susan Rice? No, we reject that.
They said it was for diversity. Obama didn't help black people at all. He did not help Mexicans at all.
But
He
he's
didn't
not
help his
black.
people,
He's
Indonesians.
not black.
He didn't
That's
help
the
his
big
people,
lie. He's
Indonesians.
Indonesian.
He didn't help the Kenyans. He didn't help anybody.
Yeah.
Do you know that for $12 a day, he could have brought water to his supposed entire Kenyan village when he was the president, and he didn't give $12 a day. Those people had to walk miles every day just to have dirty water. For $12 a day, the whole village could have had clean water. But no, our president is going over there now and claiming that that's his country and actually now trying to help Kenya. Why didn't he try to help Kenya before? Can he show us that when he was a senator or before that he was sending $10 a month back to his village so they could have water? No, he is not a Kenyan.
No, and we're going to look back historically and see that what we had here was a fake president. Countries that have treated us unfairly on trade for years are all coming to Washington to negotiate. This should have taken place many years ago, but as the saying goes, better late than never.
The tide has turned, folks, and we are no longer going to be vampirized. And it was criminal that these countries were doing this, and it was more criminal that elected officials in this country were enemies of the state and selling us out for their own personal self-aggrandizement, greed, and lust for power. Trump is basically saying that what he told us from the beginning is true. He's successful. He's happy. He's trying to help us become the same way. Of course, all the criminals are coming out after him because it's blowing their systems, the rat lines of corruption, the riverbed of evil, the channels of corruption are just ending, and the people who are at the head of it are screaming like crazy.
And related to that is the next tweet. Tariffs are the greatest. Either a country which has treated the United States unfairly on trade negotiates a fair deal, or it gets hit with tariffs. It's as simple as that. And everybody's talking. Remember, we are the piggy bank that's being robbed. All will be great. Just like you said when you looked at Lockheed here, Raytheon and BAE. They're stealing from us.
They are ripping us off left and right. And Trump could see this before he came to power, but now that he's come to power, he sees it's institutionalized. It's going to take a while. So now he's saying tariffs are the greatest. Think of that. A minute ago, tariffs were evil if we put them on people before him. Tariffs were only used by others to rip us off. But now he's saying tariffs are the greatest. That has exploded the entire concept that these other countries have a right or a power to manipulate us and say, you're bigger than us, so we're going to rip you off. Now, what was really going on, yes, the piggy bank was robbed, and Hillary was just about ready to hit it with a hammer because she'd been taken, her piggy banks were filled, and she was going to take the rest of the few coins left in the piggy bank of America. But what is an analogy that would be even better? It's like this, folks. There's a pig. Yeah, that pig has been bloodletted. And people do this. They drink the blood of animals by letting the blood. But if they let them bleed too long, they die. Had Hillary come to power, that pig would be dead. And she would have drank the rest of the blood from the pig and from young people, which she and others are very proud that they do this type of blood transfusion from young people to keep them young. It looked like she just walked out of the hospital with her muumuu she had on the other day. She should have had one of those...
No, that was a shower curtain.
Oh, that was a shower curtain.
In fact, I think it would make a great Halloween outfit. If you look at the link and in the description box, I've got a place on Jeff Bezos' Amazon where you can order that shower curtain and make you the same outfit for Halloween.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with her, but she looked like a complete nutcase who had wandered out of an old folks' home with the shower curtain on. Yeah, unbelievable that she thinks that she can still run for president when she spent the entire time criticizing Putin, who her entire time as Secretary of State she spent kissing his foot, his rear, and every other part of his body that he wanted kissed.
Yeah.
Because she was in bed with Putin like Bill Clinton was in bed with China. It's disgusting. Now, going back to Trump, he says all will be great. He cannot lose. The only way he can lose is if stupid Congress and stupid Senate try to intervene during a deal. Like they're trying to intervene with the deal with Putin. The deal with Putin could cause world peace, could save the European
But
Union.
they don't want world peace. They want war, people. It's just as simple as that.
That's
and
right.
any of our congressmen and women who are not standing with the president here are warmongers. They need to be voted out.
Absolutely.
Okay, the next tweet. Today is the day to vote for Brian Kemp. Will be great for Georgia. Full endorsement.
I just want to say I'm waiting until one of his endorsements doesn't win.
Well, I think people understand.
I haven't seen one yet.
Right now, in our history in the United States, we need to all be united. This is the coach we've selected to lead us to victory, and the coach is telling us who he wants on his team. They're like the draft picks, right? And so Coach Trump says, I want Brian Kemp on my team. Now, we out here, we got to go and get it done. Because these elections, we're going to talk about it at the end of this audio, the election process, these machines are rigged. They're electronic and they're rigged. And that's why Hillary keeps going out saying, she might be running for 2020 because she knows these machines are rigged.
Just exactly what you said. Underscore that because, Coach says that's who he wants. That's who we
right.
who we
gotta
put
listen
out
to
on
Coach.
the field.
Okay, now the next one. Our country is doing great. Best financial numbers on the planet. Great to have USA winning again.
Now, mind you, we were the best to begin with, but now we're becoming double best. It is getting ridiculous. We have more taxes paid in this year than we ever had. If it wasn't for some stupid things that they were doing that he had to close the gap on, like the military depletion, so on and so forth, money to Iran, stupid Iran deal, billions of dollars, and these $9 billion put in a slush fund for Obama to give poor people phones, and he never gave anybody any phones. If those kind of funds, which Trump has added $10 trillion to the value of America, if the money he's saved and the money he's earned was added up at this point, we have a balanced budget for the first time. We're not going to have a deficit. When it all comes down, we will not have a deficit. Who in the world could have even imagined things? GDP is up. Everybody's hired. More jobs available than people to take those jobs, even with 22 million illegal aliens. Okay? 800,000 DACA on false Social Security cards are working, and it still doesn't hurt us. Okay? So the winning is completely out of control. And the only things that aren't being won are the things being led by the heads of the intelligence community as a war against Trump. And that is what the mainstream media is using. Otherwise, they would have to talk about the winning, because if they weren't talking about the fake news, the lies, the propaganda, then they would report the truth. And the truth is, he's the best we've had in modern history.
And where are they going to get their propaganda source when Trump pulls the security clearances from Brennan and Comey and Rice and all these?
Well, we're going to go there because he's making everybody get a new security clearance, including corporate intelligence, and they won't get a new security clearance. So sorry, Brennan. Sorry, Clapper. Sorry, McCabe.
Tell me more about that.
None of you are going to get a renewal. You're so stupid.
Because you
don't even know.
He's doing it for everybody.
Every single person in the federal government in a sensitive job that has a security clearance or even has a sensitive job in any way must now have a military security clearance.
And so they'll look at Brennan and on that security clearance, and he's going to have to answer some questions that reveal his Muslim Brotherhood ties, right? So that negates his security clearance. Alvin Aldrich hired John Brennan. He was later arrested as an active KGB agent in America, and he's at life in prison for treason. That's who brought John Brennan in. John Brennan is worse than a communist. He's worse than a radicalized Islamic fascist. He is an enemy of the state. He had a lot to do with these counterintelligence operations against Trump, which are completely illegal. But here is the bottom line. We told you this from day one. Now, Tucker Carlson, about the only other person I know, in July mentioned that these people on the news who had top secret security clearances as intelligence chiefs are breaking their security agreements. They need to be put in jail for what they've already said. And that's a fact. But now you got Clapper saying, oh, well, it's just not nice. It's a courtesy that we continue to have our top secret security clearance. No, it isn't. You go out and you work for corporate intelligence with that top secret security clearance. You use all your like
channels.
Insider trading.
Complete insider trading. as enemies of America. Clapper, you should go to jail for perjury. Why should we renew your security clearance when we have to renew it under the new auspices of the military, actually looking at what you've been doing and your crimes?
And like you got Valerie Jarrett up there in her bunker in Washington, D.C., just looking over Trump as a vulture, and she gets her briefings every day.
They're all SES members with still top secret security clearances that are selling out to the highest bidder. That's what they do. Look at Comey. Look at Mueller. Look at their life. Their life is a perfect... Look at Clapper. They're all the same. They get on the inside with their security clearances, oftentimes military. Then they go corporate. Then they work for a bank. Then they work for a hedge fund. Then they come back and work for the government. Then they go out and work for a law firm. Then they work for a hedge fund. Then they work for a bank. They rotate around so that they can use their influence at the time that HSBC was being charged with about $400 billion of money laundering. Comey was there and got them off for, a few $1 million fine. Not even a percentage price of doing business. Basically, immunity. And now what do we find out? We find out Robert Mueller has given immunity to 6 people. John Podesta did the same, and Larry, same crimes as Manafort, but they get immunity. This is fake justice, people. The people at the top are running the SES, and the SES is the bureaucracy that doesn't let anything move forward. It's the resistance. It's the opposition to basically the Constitution.
I want to see all senior executive service employees out. I don't know if you have to close that whole thing down or what, but they are the enemy. Now, and they may be living in the house next to you because, you're in Washington and the guy next to you is an SES employee. Hey, he's an enemy.
Yes, and it should be closed down because it is, from the beginning, prejudicial. It is prejudice.
It's Obama's army.
It is Obama's army, but they were hired on a higher standard than civil servants. Says who? Where's the justification for that? SES simply needs to be closed. And the concept that you can place people at the top of federal agencies who have no experience in that area simply because they're your political friend, no, wrong.
And some people have... shown me some alt media creators who say that SES is just a pay grade. Well, folks, it's not just a pay grade. And you have to question that media creator who's trying to feed you that garbage.
No. Anyone who's dodging SES is simply not done their homework. They could go to Wikipedia and read it. And if you don't become outrageous reading the very slanted left-wing Wikipedia entry before you read anything that's even really truthful like we present, and you don't get angry, then you're not an American citizen. You don't love America and you don't love the Constitution.
You could be a citizen, but you're not American.
No, you are an enemy of the state. When you find out that we have an internal civil war in the federal government against states' rights, against we the people, if you don't stand up against that, you're just not an American.
Well, it's good to see that executive order that Trump just signed. I think it was like around July 10th, that is going to be booting that SES out of the U.S. Marshal Service.
And that's what he will do, and he through all the services slowly. He won't and can't go in and say no more SES, but he can change their pay grades. He can change what they're paid, and he can
make them do security clearances.
He can give them different jobs. He can rewrite what Obama rewrote, which was the regulations governing SES, which made it absolute insanity, and that's why we see what we are seeing now, because the people below SES members are terrified of them because they rotate between agencies. They don't know what they're doing. When you stand up against them, you get fired. They're horrible troublemakers. They're nothing more than power mongers, and they don't know what they're doing, but you cross them and you lose your job. So a civil servant loses their job to a person who is unqualified,
highly paid,
more
than our military for doing nothing,
has not even had a security clearance,
obstructionists.
They do not have security clearances. They aren't even asked to have security clearances. They can be foreign agents. They can be Pakistani nationals and be an SES member, okay? They can have committed any crime on the face of the earth, and you can still
who else was
be an SES member. There's waivers for everything for an SES member.
And you know who else? Brett Kavanaugh and his wife were former senior executive service operatives. Why in the world are we nominating him for the Supreme Court?
Because we told you that this is an attempt to, again, smoke the rats out. This is an attempt to, send out the hunting dogs and scare the birds up. Because why? Who's coming out now? The Democrats are coming out to attack a Democratic supporter. The Republicans are coming out to attack a Republican supporter. Because Kavanaugh goes with whatever president tells him whatever to do. He is a reed in the wind. He has no integrity whatsoever.
But you have to always remember, first and foremost, he's senior executive service. So in the end, he gets up on the Supreme Court. He's going to do the will of these globalists and these nasty anti-Americans.
And you see, people say SES doesn't reach to the Supreme Court. Yes, it does. There's current Supreme Court members that are being paid more than the others because,
How do you think Obamacare got flipped so quickly?
Precisely.
How do you think that Facebook lost its suit? Because you have senior executive service judges on that Supreme Court. This is corruption. Why can't we dismiss these corrupt Supreme Court justices?
It's fake justice, and there's a fake Congress, and there's a fake Senate, and there's fake news. And we have to live in the age of falsehood politics, it's called, or the age of beyond truth, the age of untruth. And we have to live in that. That's our atmosphere. But what we're seeing now is Trump is taking full advantage of these existing systems. And he's also slowly destroying the other ones piece by piece by piece. He didn't come in and say, I end the United Nations. But he's defunded, 6, 8 different groups of the United Nations, critical ones. He defunded the refugee program. Do you understand that's how the UN ran? The UN will collapse simply because of that.
Not to mention the Vatican.
And the Vatican will collapse because they're not getting their money.
Okay, moving on, because we've got a big juicy tweet at the end that I want you to take your time on. The next 2 tweets kind of the same. Headed to Missouri to be with many of my great friends, VFW, here we come. And the next one is Make America Great Again.
Veterans of foreign wars, which I am, and many of us are, we all love Trump. We love him. He wasn't in the military. But when you're not in the military, what you need to be is someone who kisses the rear of people who've put their lives on the line for America. And he does. He practically worships policemen, members of ICE, anybody in the National Guard, anyone in the military, the Coast Guard. He worships those people. Why? Because he's smart. He's wise. He knows that without them, you would have Obama anarchy. What we see right now in the Democratic Party.
He wants you to call it the Democrat Party.
That's the anarchy party now.
Okay.
It's basically totalitarianism. And by the way, Obama, because of his conspiracy, needs to have his top secret security clearance revoked. And by the way, I want them revoked. I don't want them just no longer issued. I want them revoked.
I want to see him in orange jumpsuits walking down the street behind the Grand Marshal at the November 11th parade in Washington in shackles. And I want John Brennan to be at the head, and right next to him, Hillary.
Yeah.
And the whole group.
I would like that, too.
Instead of orange, let's give them their favorite color, purple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the party, the red party for the Republicans and the purple party for the totalitarian anarchists.
We're just talking about the criminals.
I'm talking about anybody who voted for Hillary did not use their mind. They were simply subliminally controlled, and they voted for their own personal desires because they never once looked at the candidate, Hillary Clinton. If you did, you would find her to be the most despicable and worst candidate ever put forward in American history, even worse than her husband, the rapist, who stayed in office raping women with his wife literally fighting the battle to make sure those rapists never really got him deposed from office. That's who we're dealing with. So these are rapists. Remember, after the election, who was the first person she wanted to go have dinner with? Harvey Weinstein. Why? Because she defended rapists. Remember, as a lawyer, the only time she ever really defended anybody instead of with patents, because she's a patent attorney, was when she defended a man who raped a little girl, and she admitted that she knew that girl was raped, her life was ruined, and the man was guilty. That's Hillary Clinton. So don't get me started on her.
Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about that, but this tweet came in late. I know you haven't had time to prepare for it, but it's big because it's about our elections. I'm very concerned that Russia will be fighting very hard to have an impact on the upcoming election. Based on the fact that no president has been tougher on Russia than me, they will be pushing very hard for the Democrats. they definitely don't want Trump. Ooh, this is good. Now, this is at the American Intelligence Media. We've had to start early our next month's Awareness Month. This is Election Rigging Awareness Month, and we're asking all of the alt media creators that are listening to our audios to do what you can to educate and enlighten your audience about election rigging. It's more than just illegals voting. We're talking about any of these electronic machines, from the Scantron, you do your paper ballot and you put it in a Scantron machine, or even, the Optech software that's in all of the election machines that actually Mitt Romney and George Soros own part of this company. It's just horrendous. We have to get back to, at least for now, we need to do paper ballots, and we need to count those ballots in a public place so everyone can see, with bipartisan chain of custody. Nothing else is acceptable. In this case, technology is not good.
Absolutely. Everything you said is 100% correct and needs to be underscored 3 times.
And it's the FBI who's told us that the Russians are interfering. Well, okay, fine. Paper ballots and public square counting.
George Soros bet $1 billion that Trump would lose on the stock market because he owns the Smartmatic and other election machines in 17 states. But basically, they own all of them. It goes back to a company called Optech.
Yeah, they just keep changing their names just to keep us all in a scramble.
Every electronic voting machine in America
federally approved. Oh, right.
Yes.
Hey, look, people, it's the citizens of the country that run the elections, not the federal government.
And by the way, Optech, which is in every single electronic device for elections in America, can be hacked by a high schooler because it has PC Anywhere in it. So anyone can go in and change the numbers, okay? Anyone. And it's all a lie that they only have modems that dial out. Not true. Once that modem dials out, anybody can pick it up and you can change what they just changed. And the companies all admit that they have PC Anywhere in all of these machines so that they can remotely access them. Well, why are they remotely accessing a machine that's supposed to be top secret secure and be the most important thing in the America, according to the Constitution, our right to vote and the citizens' right to have true and valid voting. Now, we need to take control of that, folks. We just need to simply say we boycott all electronic collection of voting material, and there must be paper backup, exactly as Betsy said. Now, this is Trump's tweet. Okay, this is not a double entendre. This is not a triple entendre. This is a quadruple entendre because he has his tongue in both cheeks. He says, oh my, the Russians are coming to hack our elections again. He darn well knows it wasn't the Russians. He's making a joke, but he's using it to his advantage to say, oh, we need to beef up to make sure that there isn't election corruption. Why? Because he knows the Democrats were the election corruption. We've proven that over and over. Again and again, U.S. Digital Service, Eric Schmidt's $1.5 billion, on and on and on. Not only the machines, not only the propaganda from Strategic Communications Laboratories in Britain, and the machines are owned by Brits who are on the Privy Council, and George Soros is on Lord Malik Brown works directly for George Soros, and he controls many of these machines.
Oh, here go the British again.
It's all, you got to look at the Brits. So it's not the Russians, it's the Brits. And he knows this. It was Stephen Halpern, it was Christopher Steele, it was the Brits, and they used everybody else. But the Brits coordinated this. So the Brits interfered in our election last time. He knows that, so he's making a joke. Oh no, here come the Russians. We better get secure. We better get really secure. So right now, Homeland Security and many other agencies, the Federal Election Commission, all these groups are looking into trying to secure everything. And so right now, all over the country...
How come Pence didn't do something about it? I thought he was on the committee or something to look at election integrity. I haven't heard diddly squat from Pence.
The Democrats came out and went to war with him and said that he couldn't do a voluntary collection of information to check to see if it was valid. Why is he looking at that?
Why doesn't he look about the electronic machinery and just question the very nature of this machinery?
That is what needs to be done, and it needs to be done on the federal level, but then the feds would have to get out of it, and they're into quick results because those quick results were paid for by big Democratic donors and big Republican donors. They want to know, and they want results. Now, those machines, when it was the Republicans in power, they rigged the Diebold machines. When the Democrats were in power, they rigged the Smartmatic machines. So there's a battle between the machines, but it doesn't matter because anybody can hack the software, Optech, that's inside through PC Anywhere. All of them are completely vulnerable to junior high school hackers. So what Trump is saying here is, I know Russians didn't hack. I know it was the Democrats. We need to stop that. We just got through hammering on this. The Russians never wanted Trump. We said this yesterday and the day before. The Russians never, ever wanted Trump. Period. He's a tough negotiator. He can handle oligarchs. He is not going to sell out for money because he's enamored by being a billionaire like the rest of the previous presidents are. So what is he really saying? He's saying, folks, in the last election, if there was any Russian meddling, it would have been for the Democrats. Don't be stupid. That in itself demonstrates to you that there was no Russian election hacking or meddling because Obama and Hillary loved Putin, gave him so much money. Every time they even, one of their representatives met, they gave Russia money. It was a gigantic payoff to continue the Cold War. And it was complete nonsense. They let him take Korea. They let there be a valid vote in Crimea, in Donbass, in the other places in Ukraine. That was all staged. That was Obama letting him have that so that he would look like a bad guy if he wanted to. Then he didn't put sanctions on him. He put minor sanctions on the wrong people for Putin going into Crimea. Then he put sanctions on all the wrong people again because of the supposed Russian meddling in the election. He put sanctions on the Nord Stream 1, which was bringing the oil to the European Union without lying about it, like Germany is doing through Nord Stream 2, and then put sanctions on Russia and stop the flow of oil through Ukraine, which then harmed the European Union irreparably. So Obama was for Putin. And the minute that Hillary was going to be elected, it was all going to go back to, you're my best buddy. I only said you were bad during the election. That's what they always do. They always use the Cold War enemy as the target. That's the reason all of the European Union, that is along with those crazy people who believe in the migrant invasion, say that, Germany, France, Italy, all those elections were rigged, hacked, and completely thrown for the bad candidate by Putin.
That's the only way the globalists can win elections in the world. They have to rig the boxes. Now, that's the end of the tweets.
Trump is laughing at them. He's laughing at them with this tweet so hard it cracks me up.
Well, this is Saul Alinsky. Make the enemy live by the rules that they put in place. So Trump is making them live by these rules. These are the end of the tweets. I'm just letting people know, because if you're only here for the tweets, fine, get out. Because now we have a question from a listener, a devout listener, and she wants to know, Thomas, what happened after St. George slayed the dragon?
Well, the story of St. George and the dragon is actually taken from the story of Lucifer being thrown down from heaven, isn't it? Because Michael was given the sword of power, according to the legends, and according to a few references in the Bible. So, when the old dragon, Lucifer, the deceiver, was thrown down from heaven, he had been the brightest angel before the throne of God, but he desired that power. He desired a throne greater than that of the very powerful, all-seeing God who sat on this throne that no one could look at. Lucifer was one of the few who actually could look towards the throne. Well, Michael is the right hand of God on the throne, and the Archangel Gabriel is the left hand. So Michael goes into a battle when Lucifer attacks the throne, rents the veil of heaven, and Lucifer and his followers fall down into the dark matter of the earth, and he becomes a dragon as he pulls darkness around him and compounds darkness into glowing stones. And it is this stone that he then places in his crown, this ultimate stone, which then becomes the Holy Grail. And it was this that he then attacked, wearing this stone, and with the sword of power he attacked the throne again, and Michael then defeats him and throws him down and knocks the stone from the high point of his crown, and that green stone fell to earth and supposedly fell into the land of Tyre, and the and the mythology goes that it was turned into the Holy Grail. Well, what happened to the dragon? Well, the dragon was then on the earth, and the Bible also speaks how the dragon is cast down and he uses his tail to grab 1/3 of the stars of the sky and bring them with him. Those are supposedly the dragon's proponents. They are being fought against by the archangel Michael on the earth, and Michael has come to the earth since 1879 into the realm of the earth to continue to fight this dragon. We would call it the dragon of materialism, the dragon of death, the dragon of lies, the dragon of deceit, the dragon that tells you you're not an eternal person who's going to return to that throne of God that you came from. That's the deceit of the dragon. So Michael fights the dragon. Well, Michael never kills the dragon. Lucifer in the story is going to be redeemed by Michael in the end, and by the Holy Spirit and by other beings. The gift of the deed of Christ, the deed of God the Father, so on and so forth, and some would say Sophia and the goddess and other beings. So he will be redeemed in the end. The dragon is not killed. And so then it turned into the myth of St. George and the dragon, or in the Eastern Church, St. Fenarius and the dragon. And so this dragon is seen being held at bay with a spear. Held at bay. It is not killed. We do not kill the dragon. So in the stories that then devolved from that, you hear how only a virgin maiden can tame the dragon, and she takes the golden cord from around her waist, ties it around the dragon's throat, and then leads the dragon into town and turns the dragon into the engine, literally they call it the engine of industry. And so they put the dragon to work because the pure maiden, Sophia, with her golden cord, that's human willpower of love, tames the dragon and turns the dragon to good. And so when they say Sophia is coming to tame Lucifer and change him and turn him back into an angel, this is an old Gnostic story, and this is part of it. So what we're dealing with here is, that's all archetypal. In you, below your heart, is a dragon. The dragon of your stomach that wants to eat bad stuff, the dragon of your unforgiveness that doesn't want to forgive people, the dragon of your unfulfilled sexual desires that are rampant, your desire for greed, lust, anger, hatred, all of those are the dragon below your heart.
Which we see playing out in the world today, from Washington and the swamp to Hollywood.
That's right. And these people we see, like a Clapper, his dragon is very clearly before all of us. He can't open his mouth without lying. He doesn't even know when he's lying, and he doesn't even care. That's his dragon, okay? You see Obama? Obama wasn't happy till he killed 2 million people, put 60 million refugees into flight. What kind of person could be that way and then stand up and virtue signal with rhetoric that is a lie and the opposite of what he did? How about Hillary Clinton? How many people have died around the Clintons? Let's look at her dragon. Now, do we want to kill that dragon? If you do not kill your lower self, you will not birth your higher self. So the dragon's your lower self, and above your heart is your higher self. So when you get into, love, grace, mercy, righteousness,
the seven heavenly
virtues, you go the opposite direction. So the dragon is never killed, dear reader who's asked that question. I think I even know her name. But the dragon isn't killed. The dragon must become your best friend, because the dragon is the power of your lower chakras. Your power chakra is just below your belly button, your chi chakra, right? The serpent is wound around your first chakra. So the serpent, the dragon, the beast, the demon, the serpent that tempted Adam and Eve, that is wrapped around the tree, that's the same dragon. We must tame that. And the knowledge of good and evil that comes from the tree, we must know the difference between good and evil. And then we must eat from the tree of life and live forever. And then the lies of the dragon will no longer have any power, and his lust and his desire that he instills in you will not control you any longer as you rise into the heavenly virtues.